Hi, this is Maryland Comptroller Peter Franchot. I may not listen to every podcast out there, but I do listen to the Maryland Crabs.
Live from a grungy kitchen table located in Annapolis, Maryland's scenic and historic capital, it's the Maryland Crabs Podcast. With each episode, your hosts, Tim Hamilton, John Frenay, and the occasional guest will dive in and pick apart the stuff that really matters most to you. We're too lazy to actually solve any of these problems, but we can definitely stir the pot. From schools, politics, parking in the fire lane, to those horrible people who drive BMWs. And here with this week's episode, live from the kitchen table, Tim Hamilton and John Frenay.
Well, I think I might have died in my car on the way up here because I am in Mecca right now. So I'm at the Guinness Open Gate Brewery and Barrel House just outside Baltimore, right?
Correct.
I rarely venture up this way because I rarely leave my house. But if I'm going to leave my house, it's going to be for the freaking Guinness Brewery. And I'm here with Ryan Wagner, who's the Brewery Ambassador, which sounds like the best job on the planet.
Yeah, it's pretty good. The worst part about it is trying to explain it to people who don't quite get it. If I'm giving them the short Reader's Digest version, I'll tell them that it's my job to simply spread the gospel of Guinness. That's the easiest way to explain it. But more in depth, my job is to train and educate, make sure that the people that handle our beer at every single step of the chain understand what it is, why it exists, how to serve it, how to protect it, how to pour it, how to appreciate it. And that includes people that are drinking it as well. And also, I'm incredibly honored to handle the training here inside the brewery for all of our staff members. They work incredibly hard, and it's been a blast to get to know them and get to work with them, and also handle beer quality for us inside the brewery.
So I've heard two things. I heard, do whatever you love, and you'll never work a day in your life. And I've heard, do what you love, and you learn to hate what you love because it's just a job.
True.
You do not strike me as the latter.
Yeah, I think that I've been incredibly blessed. My background is very unique. It starts in musical theater and working as an actor in New York.
Did you really?
I did. And then working for Major League Baseball in New York, hosting a show. Coming back home to my native Baltimore to become the announcer at Oriole Park at
You're
Camden
like Forrest Gump. Jesus Christ.
Right. And so now I'm the announcer at Oriole Park at Camden Yards, working for the Orioles. I've been doing that for 8 years and now working for Guinness as well full time. There will always be an element anytime you go to work doing something that you're very passionate about and that you love. There's no other way to make a living. I firmly believe that. But within that, you do lose, I don't want to say a sense of the magic because this job is incredibly magical, but to give you a line from my wife, who I think would appreciate a mention here, we go out and have a beer. I can no longer just have a beer with dinner. I'm constantly analyzing it and smelling it and looking like a moron sitting at the table with her. And the other day, actually, we were out to dinner and she looked at me and she said, do you think you'll ever just enjoy a beer again? And I think the answer was no. So you're
a lot of fun on a date. Yeah.
I'm incredibly fun on a date, which is probably why we don't date anymore. But no, it's an incredible thing to represent a brand that is 260 years old, to be a part of the newest chapter in a book that's 260 years old. I mean, there's nothing quite like that. And I believe in this company. I care very much about what we've built here in Baltimore. And a huge portion of that is being from this city, and loving its people and loving its industry and loving, everything that makes it what it is. And to be able to bring something like Guinness here and to be a part of what makes Baltimore special is meaningful.
So my father-in-law was actually a brewer. He's a brewmaster in Brooklyn, New York. He worked at the Rheingold Brewery in the 60s and 70s, and that was what he did. And he passed away last year, but they closed the Rheingold Brewery back in the mid-70s. And they moved back to the mountains of Pennsylvania. And there's a part of him that just never got over that because he would sit up late talking about his times in the brewery and just how it was the best times of his life. And he had the same attitude that you did, where it wasn't just a job. It was artistry. You were making something, and you'll find people now who talk nostalgically about Rheingold or what have you. But in Guinness, I can't think of any beer that's mythologized,
romanticized.
Than Guinness. It's amazing.
There's an inherent responsibility. For sure.
Yeah.
When you're protecting something
that
people feel so personally attached to, everybody's got a Guinness story, right? We talk about that all the time. And even in this world where craft beer has become, it's taken over the world and rightfully so. For a lot of people, the gateway into craft beer was Guinness. And so we have an incredible responsibility to protect this heritage and protect these stories. And we do that. We honor that heritage, but we're also excited about looking forward. But, was it you said your stepfather?
My father-in-law.
Father-in-law, excuse me. What your father-in-law knew, I'm sure, and what I know to be true, is that passion is the single most contagious thing in the world. If you've ever met with someone or spoken to someone who was talking about something about which they had a great deal of passion, you wanted to listen. You wanted to be a part of that. And so what we are able to do is meet with people and talk with people and share with people every single day that are passionate. And it's intoxicating. And I mean that in a good way.
So let's back up for a second. So if people have been living under a rock and you don't know what's going on, this facility, and we're not too far from BWI Airport. And, I've been to the Guinness Brewery in Dublin many times, which, I don't think they do any brewing there really anymore. So it's more of a museum and it's a monument to what Guinness is. But, so this is a new world take on Guinness, and the new world is experimentation. So that is where you are. So you're kind of, we talked about before, like the Willy Wonka / Max von Sydow from Strange Brew, that, you're protecting the original brand, but you're also making a foray into newer experiments in Guinness, which is a lot of pressure. Obviously, because people feel very passionate about the original brand. But tell us a little bit about the genesis of where we are now.
Yeah, I think that the genesis of this place really has its roots in the American craft beer industry and what it has meant over the course of the last 25 or 30 years. I mean, we're living in a time right now where in this country, there are more than 7,000 breweries in the country. And I'm not a math major. I went to school for musical theater, so my math is a little rusty. But I know that means that on average, that's 140 breweries per state. I think a report that the Brewers Association did last year stated that 90% of people living in the lower 48 live within 10 miles of a brewery.
I had no idea.
Which is just overwhelming. That there is amazing locally made craft beer around every corner, seemingly. And so one of the things that I think says a lot about the founding parents of Guinness and the people that run the business to this day, the people that are in control of our collective creative destiny, they know the one great thing that all great people know, which is they don't know everything. And so they were willing, and this is a great testament to them, to invest in a huge amount of money, a huge amount of time, a huge amount of resources into building this brewery, to hiring an American craft brewing team, because our team of 9 brewers have their foundation and have their experience in American craft beer, and handed them creative license to say, okay, guys, what do we need to do?
That's a risky thing.
100%.
Yeah.
And I also think that what Guinness is able to pull from, we often say that this is where 260 years of Irish brewing heritage meets American beer creativity. So we have our roots in being a brewer. We've always been brewers of beer. But I think one of the things that really kickstarted this idea is that for too long now, drinkers in America, people that love Guinness and adore Guinness, assume that Guinness is about one beer, and not being a brewer.
We talked about that when you took me on a tour earlier, and we talked about that when you said, what do you expect
when you go to the bar
and I asked for a Guinness?
You order a Guinness, and that's never been a beer name. That's a brewery name.
Right.
And so we wanted to remind people that, hey, in this era of incredible experimentation and innovation and creativity, we can play in that playing field as well. But, bringing in people like Holly Stevenson, our head brewer from Highland Brewing in Asheville, North Carolina, Peter Weens from Stone in Richmond. He opened their new brewery in Richmond. Sean Brennan from Jolly Pumpkin in Michigan. DC Brow, Victory, Monocacy Brewing in Frederick, Maryland. These guys are making incredible beer, and we were able to bring together this incredibly diverse and amazing group of people and give them the keys to this brand new, massive brewery with all the bells and whistles, and say, go, do, make. And so what you see in front of you, and we have a couple of beers from our innovation series out right now. The first one, which is in front, looks like the antithesis of everything that people assume Guinness is. This is a crisp and clear, bright, light golden straw color that is a vintage lager made in a pre-prohibition style. And so, this is something where we're hearkening back to an era that we certainly were brewers in, and making a beer that most people would not assume to find from the brewers of Guinness. Now,
and I've told you this before, my 2 beers of choice have always been either Miller Lite, because I have no class at all, and it would be, or what I would call Guinness, with Guinness Stout.
Yeah.
So my wife loves the Guinness Blonde, and I like it too, but I've never made forays into like IPAs or because I'm a creature of habit.
Sure.
But to me, enough to have the Guinness name on, I'm like, all right, let's see what's what. You know, so what am I drinking here again? So
you are drinking, this is called our vintage lager. So sort of an old school take on a lager, pre-prohibition style. It's going to have a little bit of that sweetness that you look for, but it's just nice and crisp, flavorful.
This is really, really good.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to be doing something for the podcast going, this is, seriously, I really like this a lot. It's very clean. It's very light. It doesn't have because I don't like the IPAs because it can tend to be bitter, and I'm a big sissy. But I mean, this is I could drink a few gallons of this.
What I love about responsibly, first of all, of course.
Oh, you just met me, didn't you?
But what I love is, and I think our brewers would echo this as well, we're seeing beer is incredibly cyclical, right? I mean, we're seeing right now popular styles of beer are styles that we tried to get away from. And as technology advanced, we were able to not make sour beer anymore. And now all anybody wants is sour beer. And because of drum roasters, we didn't have to make smoky beer anymore. And now all people want is smoked beer. And so we're seeing these cycles go, smoked beer, Rauch beer, all those kind of things. Not my jam, but a lot of people love that stuff. So now what we're seeing, and our brewers love this, a return to sort of the basics, right? 4 ingredients, water, malt, hops, yeast. What can you do? Can you make a clean Pilsner? Can you make a really great lager? And, people like Holly and Peter, these guys are down there working themselves like crazy and creating beers like this. And so I had a funny way of explaining this the other day. The question that I get asked an awful lot, because we are so focused on innovation and creativity and what's different and what's new and pushing boundaries in terms of processes and ingredients, how often are we dumping beer? People ask that all the time. You guys must dump beer an awful lot if you're trying so many new things. The answer is we never do. We've never dumped beer. And the reason is, if I go home and decide to try to make you a pineapple upside down cake, it's probably going to end in something that we have to throw in the trash. Nobody's going to want to eat my pineapple upside down cake. If Gordon Ramsay goes home and decides to make a pineapple upside down cake, it might not be the pineapple upside down cake that he was hoping it would be. It's going to be the best pineapple upside down cake I've ever had in my life.
So your brewer's failures are just a step below genius.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's the easiest way to describe it. They're always shooting for something that is at the pinnacle of beer making.
Their standards are going to be ridiculously high.
Unbelievably high. And so even within that, the other thing I'm very proud of is the sheer number of people we've had through these doors since we opened, the different demographics, the different age ranges and genders, and every demographic represented. So on that menu, we tried very hard to make this a brewery for everybody. No matter what your education level is in terms of beer, no matter what your preferences in terms of flavors or textures or tastes or aromas, whatever it is, we're going to find a beer that fits your palate. And that's a testament to the brewers and the work that they do.
So I saw that, I did some research, obviously. My partner doesn't think I do, but I do. And he's not here to drink, so that's what he gets. But so the Guinness Blonde, it was previously brewed by your friends at City Brewing in Latrobe, Pennsylvania. Yeah. Now, when I think of Latrobe, obviously I think of Rolling Rock, which I think might be, again, I'm a Miller Lite guy, but I've heard people, as a matter of fact, it was the Spencer novels by Robert B. Parker. He always would say that Rolling Rock is the finest American beer ever brewed. I love Rolling Rock.
I've had a number of Rolling Rock in my day. Yeah.
And I lived in Western PA for a few. Growing up in the 80s, we had Rolling Rock, and we thought that it was just the buckets of them, and they were incredible.
Oh, sure.
In Western PA, they think it's shit beer because it's brewed there. Whatever's brewed in your home is the crap stuff. Right. But I loved Rolling Rock, and it's funny when I read this and I was drinking the Guinness Blonde, I'm like, there are some hints of that in there. I mean, it was just brewed there. It doesn't mean it's going to be related, but I'm like, there are some hints of that there that I actually like.
So I think that the story of Guinness Blonde American Lager, which is what it was called when it first debuted a few years ago, I think that's really part of the genesis of this place coming into reality. That was an attempt to brew a beer for the American audience using what knowledge we had about what American beer drinkers like to drink. Light, crisp, easy drinking lager style beers. And so the brewers in Dublin, who are some of the best in the world, I think you know that, having been there, they're incredible at what they do. But I will say it's really difficult to innovate for a country that's an ocean away. And so the recipe that they built for Guinness Blonde American Lager was then sent to the brewers in Latrobe at City Brewing and was brewed under contract. And I think one of the real impetuses of getting this brewery built was to give Guinness Blonde a home, to give it a cultural home, to give Guinness a cultural hub in the United States. Guinness Blonde is in many ways the tip of the spear in terms of Guinness innovation in this country. It is our flagship beer here. And one of the things that our brewers were tasked with doing when they came on board was taking the Guinness Blonde American Lager recipe from Dublin and putting their spin on it. Okay, guys, you have your brewery, you have your team assembled. What do you want to do to the Guinness Blonde American Lager recipe? So the Guinness Blonde that comes from our brewery, and which has come from this site here in Baltimore since August of last year, is, I would say, a fairly different beer than what the Guinness Blonde American Lager that most people may be familiar with is.
And I hear, I think Americans get a rap around the country, around the world, and for good reason, a lot of times being uncultured and our tastes are very broad, but I would look at we had the microbrewery boom in the 90s.
100%.
And then it collapsed, and then all of a sudden it came back very quickly after an absence of probably about 8 or 9 years, and we're back to where we were in probably 94, 95. But I don't think that our tastes in beer are as unsophisticated as they would be compared to Europe. I mean, sure, we drink plenty of Miller Lite and Budweiser and Coors and what have you. And if you want to look down on that, that's fine. But we have a thriving IPA community in the entire country. So, I mean, I would argue that we're not unsophisticated when it comes to our tastes in beer.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I don't think that the development of something like Guinness Blonde was never an attempt to take advantage of some type of lack of sophistication.
Right. Like you're not dumbing it down.
Well, no, it's not about dumbing it down. And I think anybody that has Guinness Blonde versus one of the other beers that you're talking about, you're going to discern a lot more flavor, a lot more character. But I also think that they wanted something that would be an epic departure from, again, that mindset that people have about Guinness, that preconception that they have, that this beer that I'm holding up right now, Guinness Draft Stout, this is Guinness.
Right.
No other beer could possibly be Guinness.
And that's where I've been for years.
Yeah, so Guinness Blonde American Lager, now Guinness Blonde brewed here, that was a beer that was saying, hey guys, there's a different way of looking at this. There's a different story to be told. And now to your point, Guinness Blonde is the tip of that spear. But we do have 20 beers available on draft right now that run the gamut of style and flavor and taste and ingredients and all those things, because we understand, as our brewers lead the way for this, we understand that the American palate is one that's as developed in terms of beer drinking as any culture in the world.
And Julia, who's our lovely handler,
Yep.
When we came in, she gave us me a list of she said, you want to look at the menu with the beers? And I had looked at the menu online, which was the restaurant menu. And with the restaurant menu, they pair it with the various Guinness beers that we have here. And I thought that's what she was talking about, and she wasn't. So I'm looking at this 2-page menu of all the beers, and I'm like, oh, I had no idea that there are all these beers and these nuances. So when she said, all right, what beers do you want me to bring out? I thought you'd rattle off 1, 2, and here they'd go. But you pondered it for a while and thought about it, and because there's even for you who lives this, that there was a broad selection for this, and I'm impressed. I didn't know that we had this huge selection.
Well, the next one that we brought in, which is the one behind the vintage lager.
By the way, we have these beers lined up in front of us. This is the best episode ever.
Yeah,
we should turn this into a weekly series, frankly.
Come on down, man. We're happy to have you. So this is a Tangerine Golden Ale made with quite literally hundreds of pounds of tangerines. And it is, again,
it looks like orange juice.
Yeah, well, it's going to smell like it too. If you hold it up, the biggest moment is when you just give it a whiff.
Oh man, it does.
Yeah. So just a light pale ale, lots of tangerine in there. And again, a completely different experience. For
sort of like a shandy?
Not quite. I think it's got a little more.
Julia, he just had this look where he looked at me when I said shandy, and he's trying not to insult me, and he had that look like, shut up.
No. I don't. I think along those lines.
I'm so uncultured. Yeah. I really am.
No. I don't think that I think it maintains a little bit more the beer character than a typical shandy would, because the shandy is brewed with pure juice and blended with juice. So this has a little bit more character. It has a little bit more meat on the bone, I suppose, for lack of a better way to put it. But this is a beer, and what I love about a beer like this and why I wanted to bring it to this podcast, a lot of times when people come in here, because it is so grand, and it is. I mean, this is a massive space, lots going on, full restaurant. Yeah. Thank you. We have a lot of people that expect that we're going to have a full bar back there.
Right.
Can I get a glass of wine? Can I get a cocktail?
Nope.
The answer is no. Yeah, we're a Class 5 brewery here in the state of Maryland. Very proud to be a part of the Brewers Association. We abide by the same rules as everybody else, which means that we're allowed to serve what we make. And so in order to get around that, and somebody comes in and says, well, I drink white wine, or I drink bourbon cocktails, or I drink whatever it is, try this Tangerine Pale Ale. You may not like beer, but you might like that.
I just had this, and like if you said what's in that, I wouldn't say orange, or I would say that's tangerine. That's dead on. That is really good.
Yeah, and what I like about it also is that it maintains a little bit of the bitterness of the peel.
Man,
as
that's
well.
So good.
Kind of
it
sharp.
Really is.
Yeah.
I was prepared to come here and pretend I like this stuff because I'm so uncultured.
It's okay. I'm going to give you stuff that you actually like.
I like Guinness Stout, and I like Miller Lite, and I don't vary much from this. So I was going to say I'm going to put on a brave face and pretend I like that. These are really, really good.
I appreciate it. I mean, like I said, these guys don't make bad beer, and they're brewing the things that they want to drink themselves, which I love. But they're also, they're acutely aware of what the American palate looks like and what people drink. I mean, Holly was voted the best brewer in Asheville, North Carolina 2 years ago. And Asheville, North Carolina is home to roughly 7.5 million brewers. If you've never been there before, that place is,
that town.
Incredible in terms of the number of brewers. And Holly was top of the list.
And you guys are all very young. I'm just going to come out and say that. So, I mean, you're a young group and you seem passionate. We walk through. So people don't know, if you've never been here, and you've got to do this. There's a huge open air bar that's absolutely beautiful. And then it's a museum. You said that we are a bar that happens to have a museum.
We're a bar that happens to have a museum in it, yeah.
So as we're walking out, we met one of the brewers, and Ryan grabs the brewer and he introduces me. And here's a guy that's dressed in the clothes that he was wearing today when he was brewing, and he's just having a drink after work. And the guy looks like he's 20, but
Todd's gonna love you, man.
He knows more, but he looked. Just looking at someone that young that does something that is so useful. I wish I had a skill at that age, but you guys look very young. That you're kind of the future of this.
Well, I think a lot of us would appreciate that sentiment. This is an incredible group, and a lot of people who care very deeply about what they do. And it's rare in this world, I think. As I've ventured around and done a lot of different jobs and worked for a lot of different companies, to find a group of people who give a damn.
Well, how did you end up here? So let's look at you. So you are, like we were talking about this, you are like Forrest Gump, that you've gone through these incredible jobs, and you're a young guy and you have an immense responsibility. And when talking to you today, I can tell that taking it seriously is something stupid. You're passionate about that, about the brand and about innovation and all those things. So, and you're Baltimore born and bred.
Yeah.
So you didn't even have to leave it. You didn't have to come from Asheville or anywhere else. Like, you are in your hometown working your dream job at one of the premier companies in the world.
You're going to make me cry. I mean that sincerely.
How does that happen?
So to make an incredibly long and crazy story as short as possible, I had a background in acting, worked in New York as an actor for a number of years, did a couple of national tours. Got hired by Major League Baseball. What's that?
What were you doing?
I was doing The Wizard of Oz.
Were you really?
You may have heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got to travel around quite a bit. 49 states. I got one left.
Which one?
Hawaii. That's the hard one.
That's not really a state.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's just a paradise.
Yeah, it's great.
I got to get over there.
It's not a state.
And so I acted for a long time, then got hired by Major League Baseball to be the announcer, to host a show in New York, and moved back to Baltimore, where I grew up, to be the announcer for the Orioles at Camden Yards. And I've been doing that for the last 8 years. And when I got that job, it was great, but I needed a full-time job as well. Mm-hmm. For the first time in my life, I needed a 9 to 5, and I had to figure out how to be that guy. And so I worked a couple of different jobs. Wasn't terribly happy with any of them. And
cubicles?
Cubicles, yep. A lot. Yep, lots of cubicles.
That eat your soul.
And then in summer of 2016, my wife and I traveled to Dublin and spent most of our trip in Belfast, Northern Ireland.
Which is beautiful now.
Unbelievable.
We went there, I was telling you, we go to Ireland every 2 years.
Sure.
And we've been doing that since the 70s. And we were there during the height of the Troubles. And Belfast was just a war zone. Literally a war zone.
Of course. And so we spent time up there, but the first thing we did when we flew into Dublin, we did the speed tour. We did 12 hours or so in Dublin before we got on the bus to go up to Northern Ireland. And we went to Guinness because every out-of-work actor is a working bartender and vice versa. And so I spent 12 years as a bartender, and I wanted to go to Guinness. I wanted to go to the home of that pint that I'd been serving for so long. And I think I was probably guilty at that point in time of thinking that they were just one beer.
Yeah.
And we, through some of my connections in the hospitality industry, had gotten a tour set up. And the tour was led by a guy named Alan. And Alan, I don't think...
I know Alan.
Alan Maxwell. Do you know him?
No.
Oh, okay. You should. And if the next time you go back over, ask for Alan.
I've never met Alan. I don't like...
So here's the thing with Alan. He gave us a tour, and you've been there, but for people who have not, you start your tour on the very first floor of the storehouse, and you're standing in the center of the room, and as you look up from the center of that room, you can see all the way up to the sixth floor, and the inside is shaped like a Guinness pint glass.
And it's all glass.
It's all glass. Yeah, it's epic. And right below your feet is the 9,000-year lease that Arthur Guinness signed. Whether it's the real one or not, we're not here to discuss. But so it's just, and Alan starts talking to she was my girlfriend at that point, but Amy and myself. And as he's talking, people are gathering, because they're waiting for their tour to start, and we are getting a personal tour from Alan. And he starts talking, people are gathering around, and then he says, okay, guys, we're going to take a step this way and we're going to start the tour. And as we start to walk, everybody's coming with us, right? 60 people are now. And Alan did something, still to this day, one of the most elegant things I've ever seen. He grabs Amy and me and kind of pushes us in front of him just slightly, turns around and says to all these people, ladies and gentlemen, your tour will be starting in just a few short minutes. Wait right where you are. Your tour guide will be right along. These two are very important guests, and they have a special tour. I felt like Jay-Z. I felt like I was, king of the world. And he proceeds to give us this tour, and I was just blown away. You take tours all the time without even really thinking about it. I remember one tour guide in my life, and it was Alan. And so it just stuck with me. We talked about him the rest of the trip. It was like he was with us the entire time. And I was blown away by his passion and by his fire and by how personal he made the tour. And so you fast forward a year to May of 17. So not quite a year. I got laid off from the job that I had been doing. And Orioles season was in swing. So financially we were okay. It wasn't, the end of the world. And so I go home and talk to my fiance at that point. Now she's not my fiance. And
move that along. Yeah.
And wife now. So we're moving forward in
progress,
time. But so I talked to her and she asked me a question that was like a dagger to the sternum. She just looks at me and she says, well, what do you want to do? You couldn't breathe. I'm like, I have no idea. I'd been an actor, but wasn't really doing that. The Orioles were great, but, wasn't really paying the bills and so on and so forth. And so I looked at her and I thought about it for a minute. I said, I want to work for Guinness. I want to be Alan. That's what I want to do. I want to be that guy. I want to go to work every day caring about it as much as he did, right? And so I didn't know what that meant. I knew this place had been announced. They hadn't really started building it. No timelines, no nothing. But I said, I know enough people in the bar industry. I'm going to write a cover letter that has now become the stuff of legend. It was too long and too prosy and just overly feathery language. Put my resume together and sent it to a few friends. I said, hey, if you know anybody at Guinness, send it along. And they all emailed the same guy on the same day, Kevin Ferns, who's now a good friend of mine. And Kevin calls me and he says, hey, man, call off the dogs. I get it. You want to work at Guinness.
And stop communicating.
To make this crazy story, it just blows me away. He says to me, I don't know what you want to do, but there's this group of people called the Guinness Brewery Ambassadors. And there's 9 of them in the country total. And the original 9 are still there from a year ago. The program just started a year ago. The first 9 are still there except for one guy. And he was based in Atlanta, which for Guinness is considered the South Atlantic U.S., of which Maryland is a part. Mm-hmm. So we need to find a replacement for that guy. But they want that replacement to be based in Baltimore because that's where the brewery is being built. And here are all the things that you would need to do as a Guinness Brewery Ambassador. And it was literally all the things I loved. Presenting, talking to people, being passionate, training, being behind a bar and telling people how to serve and take care of Guinness. Just my wife jokes all the time. It's like I wrote down everything I was good at and handed it to Guinness and, held them hostage until they gave me a job. It was kismet, man. 2 weeks after I was let go, I had an interview. 2 weeks later, I was hired by Guinness.
With your dream job.
With a dream job that I didn't even know existed. This is not something you set out to do. There's no training course for it. There's no nothing. And so to wrap the story up, because this is the best part, 6 months later, after I get hired, we go back to Dublin. And this time I've got a harp on my shirt, right? I'm full-fledged member of the Guinness family.
You're Alan.
Now. Right. So we're touring through St. James's Gate, this time behind the scenes, in the brew house, in the archives, in the vat house, seeing everything there is to see. And my heart is laid bare. Like I cannot believe where I was 6 months before versus where I am now. And the whole time I'm wandering around this place, I'm looking for Alan. That's who I'm looking for because the guy literally changed my life. And we go into what's called the Open Gate Brewery. It's where we get our name, actually. The Open Gate Brewery is the innovation brewery in Dublin at St. James's Gate. And they've opened the doors as of a few years ago. So now you can come in and try what's new and try what the latest beers are. It's a really neat space. And that was the last thing we did on the trip. We were there for 3 or 4 days. And I walk in and who's behind the bar polishing glasses but Alan. It's now been a year and a half since I've seen the guy, but I knew it was him. And I kind of break away from the group a little bit. It's off hours, so the public isn't in there. And I go up to Alan and I said, hey man, I know this is going to sound bizarre. This is going to sound really weird. And I apologize in advance. My name's Ryan. I'm with the Guinness US team. We're getting ready to build the brewery. I just had to tell you, man, the reason I work for Guinness is because of you. My wife,
wow.
We came out a year and a half ago. We took a tour. I was blown away by your passion, blown away by your energy. And when I got laid off, I decided I wanted to work for Guinness. And Alan looks at me with kind of a quizzical look. And then without missing a beat, he goes, how is Amy?
Holy crap.
Right. And so
That's
we have this incredible ideal here about Irish hospitality and what it means. And what it means to me is Alan. That's awesome. That's the story. That's the guy. And so in all the training that I do here at the brewery, we have a phrase around here that we be an Alan. You be that guy. You know, if you can figure out a way to do what he did, and I don't expect people a year and a half from now to walk in here and for everybody to go, hey, Norm, how are you? Like, cheers. It's not going to be like that. But if we can create that kind of experience for people, if we can create that kind of personal engagement, and if we can share passion every day, that's what it's all about, man. And that I fell into this job in many ways. But day one, when I realized what it was and when I realized what I was able to do in terms of making my mark on this place and on Guinness as a whole in the U.S., I'd never looked back, man. I full steam ahead.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and you know what? When you talk about passion, every minute in this building, every minute out in the world with Guinness is a minute away from my wife and a minute away from my family. And so if I can't be passionate about it, there's no reason to go.
Right.
Because I'm passionate about my wife. I'm passionate about my family. I'm passionate about the life that we're building. So if I can't bring that same passion to what I'm doing out at work, stay home. You know, it's a challenge, and it's a hard job, man. I don't want people to think it's peaches and cream. You know, I work incredibly hard, crazy hours.
Your dream job doesn't mean that it's an easy job.
It's never going to be easy. But it's been remarkable. And to be and I mean this, a very small part of what this place has meant to people, can't ask for anything more than that.
That's great when you have a job that you can create a atmosphere for people and the memories for people. And it's funny when you talk about Alan. So my wife and I, we got married 22 years ago last week, and we honeymooned in Ireland, and we go to Ireland quite a bit. And we were outside Blarney Castle, and there was some busker there who was playing the guitar, and he was singing, and he was selling there was lyrics on a sheet of paper, and he would sign the sheet of paper. And he said, "Are you on honeymoon?" We said, "Yes." So I can't remember his name, but he signed his name, and he said, "To you on your honeymoon." And he gave it to me, and he said, "I won't remember you, but you will always remember me."
Yeah.
And here we are 22 years later. And I was just one of like a zillion people from that day, but we always remember that guy.
Yeah.
You know, that's the Irish hospitality.
And what's funny is, you know, we talk about this ideal of the Irish pub because it's so massive to what Guinness does in this country. It's so massive to what Guinness does around the world. You know, packaging and recreating that sense of the Irish pub elsewhere globally. And what's funny is what Irish pubs are the centers of their communities.
Yes.
That's what they are. That's where you go as a family. That's where you go to learn what's happening in your town. That's where you go to mourn. That's where you go to celebrate, all those things. And I think that because of the way the alcohol industry operates in this country, that's not always an easy thing to do. And where we have started to see that idea of the Irish pub, that sense of community and belonging and family and all those things, is in tap rooms. That's where it's being recreated in some regards. And so what we can do here is pull on everything that every brewer in the American craft beer industry has been doing, which is creating that idea, that sense, using 260 years of being in Irish pubs, smash those two things together and create something really unique.
You know, it's funny to me because we go to the pubs, obviously, when we go over there. And the best part, if people don't know, we go over in the summer, but the latitude is that the sun doesn't set until probably about 11 to 12.
10:30, 11 o'clock.
Yeah, and then the sun comes up again at 3, so it's because it's such a northern latitude. But that was the thing that struck me is the bars there and the pubs there are very different than our bars here, whereas the bars here, you go in as young and the music's thumping and I'm not talking about clubs. I'm talking about bars.
Yeah.
And people are looking to hook up and everything. Whereas when you go in Ireland, it's very rare that you have music playing. And if it is, it's very soft, but it is older people and younger people. And it's there. You're talking, you're visiting. You're not there to drink.
No.
You're there to commune with someone, your community and with your people and your family and talk. And the drink happens to be there. And it's very important. Like, I think much like the food would be in an Italian culture, or that you eat over dinner and you eat over dinner, but you communicate.
You share
over dinner.
Food,
right?
You share food, but you also share fellowship.
Because I'm Irish American, and our food is not worth communing over. So, but the beer definitely is.
Yeah.
So I tell you what, why don't we take a quick break and we come back? We'll talk a little bit about the programs that you have and the events you have, and a little more. Because I could sit here all day. Because time away from your family, you regret it. But I have teenagers, so I can sit here all night. So we'll be right back.
He started to get down on one knee, and I saw the ring, and I saw him, and I honestly don't know that I said yes right on the back.
She didn't say anything. She was just shaking for a little while, and then I think you said yes eventually.
Yeah, I guess I did.
hope so.
I'm Steve Samaras of Zachary's Jewelers. That was John and Michelle's story of yes. For a chance to win a beautiful, rare, responsibly sourced Forevermark Tribute Collection diamond pendant, share your story at astoryofyes.com.
When you're a community bank, you help your community however you can. Like being there for local business people, backing them up when they start up, advising them when they ask, standing by them so they can grow. Helping local businesses is one of the most important things we do at Severn Bank. I'm Alan Hyatt, chairman of the bank, but I'm also a proud supporter of businesses in Anne Arundel County. You know we never forget that here at the bank, we're a local business too. We face the same challenges and opportunities as any business, and we know how fortunate we are to have customers who stand beside us. That's why we stand beside you. If you have a business or you want to start a business, talk with us, because we're banking on you. Severn Bank, here with you.
Online at severnbank.com. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender. Severn Bank is a trade name used by Severn Savings Bank.
And we're back with Ryan Wagner, who's a Brewery Ambassador from Guinness Open Gate Brewery and Barrel House up in Halethorpe, Maryland?
Halethorpe. Actually, we're technically in a town called Relay, and I grew up in Maryland my whole life. Never knew there was a town called Relay, and I'm sorry to say this, and I'm going to catch some hell for this, but if anyone ever mentions a town in Maryland that I've never heard of, I always assume it's on the Eastern Shore. That's just because I went to school at Frostburg, so I know most towns going west. And so when they said Relay, Maryland, I'm like, oh, it's weird. They're putting it on the Eastern Shore. Nope. They're putting it 1.5 miles from the Baltimore city limits right here in Relay, which is between Halethorpe, Catonsville, Arbutus, Elkridge, like just this little tiny town right in the middle of all that stuff. It's actually an interesting story. The reason it's called Relay is because, as many people know, Baltimore is the foundation of the American rail system, the B&O Railroad.
I was going to say it was the Pony Express, but
so you're not completely wrong. So as the railroads started to get built, this is before steam engines, and so your cars being pulled down the tracks were being pulled not by a steam engine but by horses. And so by the time you got from Baltimore to this part of town, you needed to change your horses out and get a new team or a relay team. And so Relay, Maryland is how you get that name. So we are in Relay. We're about 1.5 miles from the city limits. We're about 6 miles away from downtown Baltimore, 2 miles away from BWI. We're in a really neat spot, really, in town.
So you went to school up in Frostburg, which is up in Western PA for people who don't know, or Western Maryland. Sorry.
Yep.
I went to school in Western PA, so that's what I said. But there's Accident, Maryland, which is not too far. And you know why that's called Accident?
I don't.
That is because before the French and Indian War, George Washington, who was a surveyor, as every school child should know, that he was surveying the area out there, and there was another surveying team out there that they didn't know about, and they bumped into each other by accident in the middle of the woods while surveying property.
And Accident, Maryland was born.
There you go. Now, Intercourse, Pennsylvania, well, that's a whole different story.
Right by, isn't there another town that's nearby Intercourse that people always make a joke about?
Pennsylvania is a weird animal.
There's one, yeah. There's some joke about Intercourse, PA being near some other town that has a name that you're like, oh.
Foreplay, I don't know.
Something like that.
And I lived in New Mexico for years, and there was Truth and Consequences down there. Truth or Consequences. And
is the name of a town?
Name of a town, TRC. And that was after the game show in the 50s. They don't have much to name stuff after down there.
All the good names were taken.
Yeah, exactly. They said Truth or Consequences. Like, yeah, because like 10 people lived there. You were during the break. You were huffing on the phone about you had some production issues.
Oh no, we're all good. It's, you know, this.
Well, no, you're very passionate about it. That's what I like.
Well, yeah, I mean, the business touches a lot of different people. You know, so
it's all about your image and quality and all those things.
Quality is the big word. Yeah, right. We want to make sure that wherever our beer goes, it is of the utmost quality. And you know, I do whatever I can to make sure that, again, as I mentioned earlier, every single person that touches our beer at some point or another knows why and knows what and knows how and where. And so my job is to make sure that we are, you know, we're all headed in the same direction.
Now, Julia, who's now my favorite person because she keeps bringing us beer.
Yeah.
She brought us another round during the break here. So we have 2 of these samples here.
Yeah.
Julia, you're the best. I love you.
So the one in front is about as innovative as it gets for us right now. This, the beer name is a mouthful. I apologize. This is Experimental Hop 06277 Rye Pale Ale.
This sounds like a Ed Wood sort of film name.
Right.
Like that.
Yeah. So the reason why hops are experimental.
You gotta have your marketing people jump on this.
We do. Yeah, we need a better name than this. But before hops get a name and have like a, Citra or Mosaic or Centennial or whatever it might be, they're experimental. And brewers will work with those hops, create beers, and then once they have a really good sense of the aromas and the flavors and the bittering and all those things, it'll get a name and it'll be commercialized. But this is still an experimental hop, so it is as yet nameless. But I love rye pale ales. Rye is an ingredient that we've
I've never heard of rye used in a beer.
Oh yeah, for sure. So there are 4 cereal grains that are used most often. Barley's the big one, right? Almost every beer in the world features at least some portion of barley, and in many cases it is all barley. The other 3 that are used quite often, wheat is obviously used a whole heck of a lot. Oats used quite a bit as well. Oatmeal stout,
yeah, I've seen
oatmeal
those,
pale ale.
yeah.
And then rye. Rye is the other big one. Baltimore City, Monument City Brewing, which is very good friends of ours in downtown Baltimore, have 51 Rye, which is their flagship beer. Fantastic rye pale ale if anybody's looking for one. Rye adds an earthiness, a spiciness, almost like a black pepper character. And when I say earth, I mean like clean dirt. Like if you've ever had that really lovely earth kind of aroma, it's not an unpleasant thing.
No, I'm a gardener, so I get that.
Yeah, yeah. So when you smell this beer in particular,
let's see here.
You're going to pick up some of that earthy character.
I'm doing the right one, right?
Yeah, you got the right one.
Okay,
so a little bit of earthiness, a little bit of spiciness, and then on the sip, really
I can taste the rye. Holy crap.
Yeah. So, I mean, you said you're a sourdough bread maker.
Yep.
Rye rolls, rye bread, those kind of things. Just again, that little bit of spice, that little bit of character from the rye. And then that experimental hop to me is lemon rind and a little bit of lime rind, maybe some tropical fruit character as well. It's a very fruity hop, but with the rye kind of balancing it out. Very easy drinking beer. And I know you said you didn't like bitter beers. I don't think this one is overly bitter.
No, it's got a little bit of that. And it reminds me that aftertaste, you're supposed to have an aftertaste, and this one does. It's got a clean aftertaste, so it's there. It's not filmy, and it's really good.
This is a great barbecue beer.
Yeah, that is good.
Yeah, we have a barbecue pulled pork sandwich out in the tap room right now. It's fantastic pairing.
Yeah, I was looking at your menu because we have a restaurant upstairs,
we do,
right?
Yeah.
And after we break here, we're going to go take a look at that. But I was looking at the menu, and it looks like a traditional Irish menu, not the touristy one.
You think so?
I think so.
Really?
With the mussels, and let me bring that up here. You have
that surprises me. The fear was that we never wanted this to seem like an Irish pub, and that is no slight to Irish pubs. We want people to go and eat and drink at their favorite Irish pub because it is an experience unlike any other, and we know that. But for us, we wanted to show just how versatile our beer can be and really take advantage of the fact that Guinness, as we sit here right now, is served in more than 180 countries around the world. So there's a lot of different food influence that we can pull from.
I mean, there's some things on here. Like I'm looking at this right now, and there's some things that are obviously like charcuterie. Like if I go to Ireland, and we do a lot,
you're not going to get a shrimp flatbread.
No, but you have the oysters that are there because Ireland is seafood, and the mussels,
and these
that are very good.
Well, these are Maryland oysters. I mean, a lot of it is going to be almost happenstance because what Ireland does well food-wise also just happens to be a lot of the same stuff that Maryland does well.
Do you know, if you go to Ireland, and I was trying to explain this to someone, that on every Irish menu, almost every Irish menu, they have a Maryland fried chicken. And you guys are both under the age of 40, so you probably wouldn't remember this. And it was the tail end of my childhood. But Maryland fried chicken was a thing in the 50s, 60s, and 70s.
I've seen it on a menu.
What it is essentially is that you have an inch of oil, hot oil, and you take your chicken and you put it in the oil and put the lid on. So it steams and fries at the same time. And that's the signature. You have a juicy fried chicken, and that's a signature Maryland thing. It's not like Kentucky fried chicken where it's deep fried. But if you go to Ireland now, they advertise the Maryland fried chicken in every restaurant, and my kids have no idea what that is. And they had to ask me. And I think if you're under the age of probably 45 or 50, you have no idea what that is. And I barely do, and I'm 30.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Irish influence kind of back and forth between here and Maryland. There's a huge Irish population here in Maryland. Expat, heritage, Irish American, however you want to call it. We have, I'm pretty sure, the world's only Irish American Railroad Workers Museum here in Baltimore. And if you've never been, that's an experience.
I figured that'd be like in Wyoming or something like that.
Yeah, it's in Pigtown.
I had no idea.
Right downtown. Really cool spot, actually, incidentally. But so Baltimore, that name is an Irish name. There's a town, Baltimore, in Ireland. Baltimore is an Irish expression from Gaelic that means, I believe, town with a big house or something along those lines. So there's a lot of Irish influence. We wanted to give people Again, a brewery for everyone, right? No matter what you're looking to do, no matter what experience you're looking to have, we should be able to provide that for you. So the menu in the restaurant, a couple of things will certainly tie back to what you expect.
And you recommend the pairings of the beer, of the Guinness beers.
So I work very closely with the chefs to make sure that our pairings are correct in those terms. Now,
for example, you have like a crab bisque, which is
with blonde, I
blue
believe.
crab, leeks, sherry, grilled bread, and you're right, it was a blonde.
Yeah, Guinness Blonde. Yeah. So Guinness Blonde is a unbelievable pairing for anything that has that Chesapeake seasoning. Mm-hmm. So that crab seasoning that people are used to here. One of my favorite ways to demonstrate that is to do it with crab chips, because people love crab chips. Yeah. I love crab chips.
Why wouldn't you?
Guinness Blonde and crab chips, absolutely amazing pairing. Next time you're sitting at home, get a bag of crab chips, get some Guinness Blonde. We work very closely on that. You know, there is a misconception, I think, for many people that beer does not pair well with food. That wine, if you're having a fancy meal, you need a glass of wine. And there's a great quote from who in my mind is one of the best craft brewmasters in the country, Garrett Oliver, Brooklyn Brewing. Been doing it forever. Literally wrote the book on food and beer. It's called The Brewmaster's Table. And if anybody needs a book recommendation for the summer at the beach, go get it. He mentions that most people will tell you that the best pairing in terms of a drink with a nice, beautifully well-made steak is what?
Well, I'd say Guinness Blonde.
Well, most people would say a glass of red wine.
Oh, yeah. I mean, people would say, I'm not a wine drinker. Well, yeah. I'm not cultured enough.
I will drink wine. But most people, right? I mean, if you say, what's the greatest thing to drink with a red wine? And Garrett Oliver's quote is, you wouldn't smear grape jelly on that steak, but you'll drink a glass of red wine. When in fact, what you do to that steak by roasting it, by creating that browning character, which is called...
The caramelization.
The Maillard reaction, right? The same type of caramelization that happens to the meat is the exact same process, the exact same chemical reaction that happens to barley as you roast it. And the barley that you roast ends up creating a stout. So why would you not want to find that marriage between a beautifully well-made steak and an elegantly brewed stout?
Well, no one's serving wine at a crab feast.
No one's serving wine at a crab feast. No. Although you could probably get away with a crisp, dry white wine with a crab. I mean, there's a lot of ways to do it. But what the bottom line is this. For too long, wine has been considered the fancier, more elegant drink, and most of that has to do with its history, right? There is a grape line under which grapes grow very well. There is a hop line around which hops grow very well. And because the Renaissance took place in places like Italy and France and all those places, that's where the wine was made. And so the wine became the drink of the upper class and of the Renaissance and of the monarchy. So if you were being fancy, you were having a glass of wine. Where beer was being made in places like Germany and Poland and England and Ireland, places that were a little more blue collar and rough and tumble. And so if you were having a drink that was bread and meat and stew, you were going to have a beer with it. And so that still permeates society in many ways, where if you're having a burger, you want a beer. But if you're having a well-made fish with a lovely couscous, you're going to have a glass of wine. And it's actually completely different. We have beers, as you've seen, all over the map. So upstairs, whether that's, a sea bass with a tarragon meringue, we're going to give you a milk stout because the sea bass is encrusted with graham and curry. We can find those marriages. And so we try to educate people every single second they're in this building, whether that's about a beer style, a food and beer pairing, some type of the brewing process, history of Guinness, whatever it is. As soon as you sit down inside of our building, you're going to get an experience and you're going to get a little bit of knowledge.
So Julia and I were talking about in the break about Czechoslovakia, the Czech Republic, because I'm a quarter Czech and Julia's half, right? So, and you were much more educated in beer history than I am, but sure. I had read an article probably 20 years ago about the finest beer in the world was called Budweiser, which is, Budweiser, but it was in the Czech Republic or Czechoslovakia at the time. And it was this small brewery that was like 500-600 years old, and they Budweiser spills more beer in a day than they make in a year. Mm-hmm. And they were trying to buy that name forever. It was regarded as the best beer in the world because you think Eastern European when you think beer. And have you ever go down to Annapolis?
Yeah, sure, of course.
Have you ever been to Old Stein Inn?
I have not been.
Oh my God, it's exquisite. It's fantastic.
Yeah,
it's great German food. But they have when you talk about beer and the pairings with Chesapeake-based seasoning, they win the award, I think, almost every year for their cream of crab soup. But it's a beer and Munster and crab soup. Oh, and it's ridiculous. You want to punch someone. It's that good.
Yeah. I'm ready.
It's phenomenal.
I'm heading down tonight.
But you're right. It's that marriage of the beer and the wine or the beer and the cheese and the crab and all those things. It's just absolutely amazing.
Well, I also think that one of the underrated elements of tasting beer and of marrying beer with food is mouthfeel, textures. And I think one of the things that beer has over wine in most cases is the carbonation level. Carbonation is amazing for scrubbing your palate and sort of blending flavors together. And yeah, I mean, we talk about food and beer an awful lot here, and we wanted to give people a more elevated experience in regard to that.
Without being pretentious, too. And that's
it's very simple.
So we lived in probably New Mexico and Bethesda, New Mexico, during the early 90s when you had the microbrewery phenomenon that was going on. And that was always a big thing for me, was the pretentiousness of like, here's a raspberry porter. And I'm like, I don't understand this. And I just felt kind of left behind. This is very approachable. You know, this is, the pretension is left behind.
There are two words that I think are often considered, I don't want to say dirty words, but are considered, I don't know how to best describe this. The two words that we will always apply to our beer, almost always, are balanced and drinkable. Mm-hmm. We want people to be able to experience something new, experience something different, but not be overwhelmed, to not have your palate destroyed. So our brewers want to brew things that people can drink, that want to drink. So even though we may be making a rye pale ale with an experimental hop, we're still going to make it in a way that it's balanced and it's drinkable and it's incredibly high quality. I do think that there tends to be, innovation and creativity can be pushed to the very, very limits. And there are some brewers who do that, and that's what they do. And I completely understand it and respect it. But for us, I think what our brewers are going to do is look to push those boundaries, but also keep the beers within a very balanced frame of mind.
But it has to be approachable and realistic. And that's my problem with wine, is that like I will enjoy a glass of wine, but that's all I can really do is a glass. But I wouldn't know the difference between like a Chateau Lafite Rothschild, which is worth thousands of dollars, and just like your garden variety, Olive Garden wine. I don't have the palate to discern that.
Yeah.
Beer, and again, my spectrum for beer is pretty narrow, but I can tell the difference between a good beer and a shit beer, and and I think that Guinness has always been, there's an inherent honesty to what it is.
Well, and I think what we understand is that no matter how quality your beer is, no matter how well you protect the processes, the ingredients, all those things, whether or not a beer is quality is determined by the person who's holding it.
Right.
And so we respect that. And I think we focus on that to a great deal. We try at every opportunity to gain as much information from the people who are coming in our doors. It's not just about the sales figures, which tell us a lot, certainly. But it's also about, wandering around during the busy time on Saturday.
Well, it's the experience too.
And just walking up to somebody. Hey, what are you drinking? What do you think? What's your feedback? Because here's the thing, like we'd all love to be, we would love nothing more than everybody that walks in this door to be a master cicerone and know everything there is to know about beer. Maybe we wouldn't love that actually, but there's something to be said to get that type of in-depth information. Well, the hop character and the malt character, and I'm picking up a little bit of this and picking up a little bit of that. But at the end of the day, I like talking to people that are like, I love that beer. Mm-hmm. Why do you love it? I don't know.
I just like it.
Love that beer.
I never want to explain why I like something. Going, this is great. Oh, what do you like about it? And you feel pressured to go, well, I feel undertones of vanilla or peppery. I'm like, I don't know. I just like it.
Yeah. And you know what? In many cases, when somebody comes up to me or when I go up to them and I love this beer, you know why they love it? Because it was poured by somebody that took great care of them. They poured a perfect pint. They explained the beer, and they're surrounded by a lot of great friends that they haven't met yet. And they're in a beautiful facility and they're being taken care of. All those things contribute to the flavor of the beer. They do. And you can serve the best beer in the world, but if it's put down in front of you by a bartender who would rather be anywhere else, and he spills a bit of it when he puts it down in front of you and walks away gruffly, the beer doesn't taste as good. Mm. And, we talk about this idea all the time. There is a huge focus for Guinness in terms of the perfect pint. And in many ways, it's around this pint of Guinness Draft Stout, how it looks, how it's poured, how it's presented. And we'll never get away from that because that's a huge part of our heritage. But here in this building, we don't have the luxury of just pouring one beer perfectly. Every beer has to be poured perfectly. Right. And more than that, every single element of this building has to be perfect for this pint to be perfect. If our bartenders, who are some of the best in anywhere I've ever met, these guys are so passionate. If one of our bartenders pours a perfect pint of beer and the person picks that pint up and walks over into our retail shop and the person in the retail shop is rude or unwelcoming or doesn't know the answer to a question, all of a sudden the beer's not perfect. If they get poured a perfect beer and walk into the bathrooms and the bathrooms are a mess and nothing is clean, the beer doesn't taste as good.
That's Disney's Everything Speaks. That is the foundation of great businesses.
Yeah. Every single element contributes to the perfect pint. And for us, I would say that one of the biggest elements of that, the biggest element, is people getting home safely. And I cannot stress that enough. You know, the perfect
you have a lift?
We have Lyft. Yeah, we partner with Lyft.
So when you come into the building outside, there's a shelter, and then there's this huge Lyft emblem on the whole thing. It even has
like outlets, so you can charge your phone.
Yeah. So
we want people to drink. We want people to enjoy the beers. We want them to try a lot of the different recipes, but we want them to do it responsibly. And so one of the things that we do, in addition to partnering with Lyft and recommending people ride share and do those sorts of things, if someone comes into our bar and says, no, thank you, I'm a designated driver, we don't just respect that, we celebrate it. We want you to know how much that means. We want you to know how much we care that you've decided to be a designated driver tonight. So yeah, I mean, that's hugely, hugely important, because we know that no matter how good your experience is, what matters to us is that you make it home safely, and the next day you tell everyone you know how great your experience was. And if we don't do our jobs and make sure that you're making the right decisions and you don't make it home safely, all of a sudden your experience wasn't what we wanted it to be. So the final beer that Julia brought for us, this is one that I think will be the biggest challenge for you. As someone who is not an IPA fan, I wanted to bring this out because I think it's an incredibly expertly made beer. And Todd, who you met earlier, our brewer, this is his baby. So I wanted to include this because we saw him. This is a double IPA. And everyone who's listening to me, knowing that I'm driving home from this, these glasses are around probably, 6 ounces? 6 ounces. Okay, 6.75 ounces.
Right. So these are responsible drinks here.
Yep. Now, this double IPA, that being said, is 9.6% alcohol.
Okay.
So,
Julia, get me a straw.
Right, exactly. So a beautifully well-made beer. Certainly not, I know the big focus right now is on hazy IPAs and super rich, lactose-filled, oat-filled IPAs that are very creamy and silky. This is an old-school double IPA.
So this is a nice amber with a little bit of a cloud.
I would say this is a golden color. Amber's a little bit darker red, so this is sort of a golden straw color. The aroma is pure tropical fruit.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you know what this reminds me? It's Christmassy. Wait, hold on.
So pine tree, you might get a little bit of pine in there.
Look at me. Yep. I am getting more sophisticated, Julia, as I do this.
All it takes is an hour with me, buddy. We'll have you using all the beer.
It reminds me of Christmas. It's like when I bring the tree in the house.
Yeah, and it's also a little bit of the
oh my God, I feel nostalgic. Yeah. I really do. All right, let's try this.
A lot of bitterness, just so you know.
You know what, though? Yes, it is. It's bitter, but it's a very pleasant. I could drink this. I couldn't drink a lot of it.
No, and we wouldn't want you to.
But I could drink a glass of this with a nice steak, something like that.
Yeah, I think that this would go well with a scallop dish. I could see that working really well. Something
really
some kind of meaty fish, meaty seafood.
This is really good. Now, my favorite still is that first one, that pale ale, whatever that was.
The first one we tried, the vintage lager or the Tangerine?
No, the vintage lager.
Vintage lager is super good.
Yeah.
And I changed gears at the last minute. I was going to give you Guinness Blonde.
No, I've had that, which is very good.
Yeah.
But that pale ale is just really, really, really good. And
so that's actually a lager.
A lager.
So the vintage lager.
Oh, that's not an ale.
No, it's not an ale. So the vintage lager, and also when Todd came up, the brewer, again, what did he ask for? A vintage lager. This is a brewer's beer.
It almost looks like a white wine. It's
very light in color. Yeah. So certainly, really pale. This is the second or third time this beer's come back. So this is a popular one, and
I've never gotten to the aroma, and I do it when I have wine just because you're supposed to, where you swirl it and you look,
do it with beer
look at the body and everything like that. But this is everything I've had is very clean.
Yes.
So there's not it feels very clean. Like there is an aftertaste, and you're supposed to have an aftertaste.
The bitterness should be there. I mean, that's the point of a double IPA for sure.
So what events do you have coming up? Because you have a few events that you have going on.
So July 4th is obviously knocking on the door here, a couple days. We're going to be focusing on sort of a barbecue theme. So barbecue chicken, ribs, those kind of things come in, kind of a prefix menu, get a bunch of sides, have a couple of beers. So that'll be on Thursday for the 4th. But then the big one, and the one that we're really excited about, is all the celebrations around our 1-year anniversary, which is hard to believe, man. It's in some ways it feels like it's been a decade, and in other ways it feels like it's only been a week or two. So August 3rd will be the 1-year anniversary of this place opening its doors for the very first time. And we've got a lot of stuff going on. So I just found out, and people can hop online and continue to go to GuinnessBreweryBaltimore.com to look for when the tickets go live. But we're going to have a beer dinner to celebrate the release of 2 brand new beers that I cannot divulge at this very moment. At least I don't think I can. Julia, do you know that?
She just shot him a look.
So I'll say no.
Yep.
But we have 2 brand new beers. Barrel aging will be a huge part of that. So I can say that. But there will be a beer dinner on July 31st to kind of lead into that weekend. That's part of that week. And then that weekend is all about celebrating this place and really about celebrating the people that have come through our doors. So there's not going to be any ticketing. It's not going to be charged. We want people to come out and have a great time.
That's great.
There is a big music act coming in on Saturday. Again, I cannot confirm it, but we're very excited about that. So
it's the Pogues.
It's U2. No, it's not U2. So that's going to be the first real big concert out on our lawn. So we're hoping for good weather. So we have a great big outdoor space out here for those that haven't been.
It's huge. You have a sprawling campus.
About 5,000 people outside alone if we wanted to.
It's about 90,000 hectoliter things.
100 hectoliter is the brewery.
I don't know what metric system.
Yeah. Well, the square footage is what we would be talking about out there. But hectoliters are liquid. I don't know.
I don't know the metric system.
So yeah, I mean that weekend. So starting July 31st, leading all the way through the weekend. I think August 3rd is the Saturday this year. So that weekend is going to be exciting. We'll have can releases and beers to take home. Lots of different things happening in the restaurant as well.
And weekend brunches.
We do, yeah. So we got brunch on
every
Saturday and
Sunday,
yeah.
11 to 3, and then
that's
appreciation.
got a lot of Irish influence. Say again.
And the appreciation night, which
which is I believe Monday evening.
Yeah, that's every
is
Monday.
Our appreciation night. Yeah. So if you're active military, retired military, first responders, those kind of folks.
Hospital employee. Yeah.
Yep.
You get 20% discount on food and beverages.
Yeah. So we this place is a local brewery. You know, there is an ideology that we fight back against at every opportunity, that because we are Guinness and we are a massive company, and we're a global company. There's no doubt about it. But in many ways, I would argue that this building, this site, this facility is a local brewery. And if anybody doesn't believe me, come in and talk to my bartenders. Come talk to our tour guides. Come talk to our brewers. Because these guys are living and working and sweating and bleeding and raising their families and paying taxes right here in this community. So in many ways, this is a local story.
And I'm looking. We're right next to. We are in the private.
The barrel room.
The barrel room.
Yeah.
So we're here.
Appropriately named, by the way.
And we're surrounded by barrels, and I'm looking through the glass, and I'm looking at the people in the bar right now. So we're about 5:30 on a Monday.
Yep. And actually, if you look over there, right to your left, you can see a woman in a hat with a gold harp on it, waiting in line to get a beer. Even our head brewer, Holly Stevenson, waits in line to buy beer, apparently, which makes me happy. That's Holly right there.
Yeah,
she could probably just walk behind there and pour herself a beer, but she's waiting in line. So if you want to come meet the brewers, man, show up at about 3:30, 4 o'clock. I guarantee you one of them will be in this bar having a beer.
Well, this is fantastic. I'm bringing my wife up for a date night, because that counts. It does count.
It does count.
And we're going to go to
the date
the restaurant.
Is solely focused on the things that you enjoy.
Yes. So Ryan Wagner, you're the Brewery Ambassador for Guinness Open Gate Brewery and Barrel House up here in Halethorpe, Maryland, right by the BWI Airport. So this is phenomenal. I just want to thank you for having me and exposing me to a world outside of my comfort zone. And we're going to be coming up here. And Julia, thank you for being our hostess and bringing us beers, because that's my favorite thing that you do. But Ryan, this is fantastic. Thanks for having me, and good luck with your dream job.
We appreciate it. And anybody that has not been here yet, and it's a lot of people that, I still talk to people every day that say, "Oh, wait, they have a brewery here?" Yes, we do. And it's open and it's ready and it's waiting for you. So, whatever your palate looks like, whatever your beer knowledge looks like, we want to see you down here. We're very proud of this place. We're very proud of the team that we've built, and we want to share it with as many people as are willing to come through the doors.
Fantastic. Ryan, Julia, thank you.
Thank you.
This has been the Maryland Crabs Podcast with Tim Hamilton and John Fernay. Sure to follow them at all the regular places: Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and online at themarylandcrabs.com. Take a moment to rate us on iTunes. Now, get the hell out of my kitchen. Seriously, go!
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.